Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching NDTV. India has set Islamabad's record straight today with the Ministry of External Affairs clarifying that no cricket talks took place during External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar's visit to Pakistan recently for the SEO summit. Now, the visit saw only pleasantries. That is what MEA spokesperson said today, even as speculations were being raised around indications that the talks between the foreign ministers of both countries could have explored the idea of resuming some form of cricketing ties between the two countries. Well, the MEA has refuted this, and it's also clear that India, on a stronger footing now in terms of foreign policy, has concerns with regard to terror that is sponsored by Pakistan, and it will not fall for Pakistan's bait to use sports diplomacy to ease the tension and also gain legitimacy.
Absolutely. And, the situation, it remains complex, Vasudha. Diplomatic tensions and security concerns, they have halted bilateral cricket. ICC events and Asia Cup, they have in fact facilitated matches, but these regular series are essential, as many fans say, for a sustained rivalry. What about the future? Can we expect bilateral series soon? Neutral venues might be the way forward. Is UAE or Sri Lanka could be the host for such series? For the Pakistan series especially, can the growing demand from the fans and players push the governments to reconsider bilateral cricketing ties? What role can ICC and Asian Cricket Council play? Well, you see, the future of India-Pakistan cricket, at the moment, the ties, it remains uncertain.
Absolutely, Osama. Those are very important questions. Remember, India last toured Pakistan in 2006, and the two nations have not played a bilateral series for more than 10 years now. The travel, in fact, stopped after November 2008, when terrorists linked to Pakistani groups killed more than 160 people in Mumbai. The questions we ask today: what is the future of India-Pakistan cricketing ties? Have Pakistani leaders tried to use cricket matches in the past to force some kind of high-level unofficial meetings with their Indian counterparts? Is India wary of that? And is cricket as a diplomatic sanction against a country? Is that a powerful diplomatic tool? Those are the questions we will be asking. But of course, we'll also be joined by a panel of experts. But before we go to the guests, Osama, because you're a sports reporter, let me ask you, the PCB, Pakistan Cricket Board, which will host the Champions Trophy next year, has been urging India to travel to Pakistan for the match. If India does go, it will be, probably the first visit across the border in 17 years. That doesn't seem to be happening as of now. Tell us the importance of this series, and is there a possibility of another venue that is being explored?
There are multiple possibilities that the ICC specifically is looking at. As far as the importance of this series, Vasudha, goes, the ICC Champions Trophy, it is one of the most important series, international series that all countries participate in, apart from the World Cups. And I'm talking about the ODI World Cup, I'm talking about the T20 World Cup, and of course the ICC World Test Championship. So the importance of this particular series, and India has had a history. India last won it in 2013, and India would want to go and try and win it one more time. But when you look at the breakdown of India and Pakistan cricket ties, and if you could have that, if you could have that graphics, the last time India traveled to Pakistan was in 2008. So that is a long, long time back. In fact, there have been no bilateral cricket happening between India and Pakistan since 2013 and 2012 and 2013, when the last time India played a series with Pakistan. At the same time, India and Pakistan have only faced each other in ICC tournaments, and that's the only time India and Pakistan have played cricket against each other in the last 10 years. More importantly, Pakistan, it has not hosted any major ICC event since the 1996 ODI World Cup, which it hosted jointly with India and Sri Lanka.
Right.
And now Pakistan is set to host the Champions Trophy in 2025. As of now, India's participation, it looks a little uncertain. And we'll obviously talk about what are the possibilities. But at the moment, India's participation, it does look a little uncertain.
Let's take this question to our guest, Prabhu Dayal, former India ambassador. We also have Gautam Bhattacharya, senior sports journalist. Thank you for joining us on this broadcast. To you, Ambassador Dayal, first. When Dr. Jaishankar was traveling to Pakistan, it was seen as an icebreaker visit. Of course, this visit did happen. The SEO summit also took place. But in the last few few years, we've seen a lot of back and forth between India and Pakistan. India has called Pakistan epicenter of terrorism. Pakistan, in fact, has gone to an extent of calling the Prime Minister a butcher. So clearly, the relations are very tense and India is not in any mood to relent. How do you see the future of India-Pakistan ties, at least in the next few years?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. You know, when you mentioned that Mr. Jaishankar went to Pakistan just recently, let me clarify that he made it very clear that he was only going for the SCO summit and that there was no bilateral aspect whatsoever relating to that visit. So it should not be considered at all that the visit was an icebreaker in the bilateral context. It was only an SCO meeting, and we respect the SCO, and for that reason, Mr. Jaishankar represented India and attended the meeting. Now, there are serious concerns in India about the issue of our cricket team going to take part in the ICC Champions Trophy. Let me mention that as per my understanding, a decision has not been taken yet. And the Indian Cricket Council is to take a decision. But there are issues which will have to be factored in. Of course, government approval will be necessary. And in this context, it is very important to remember that India does not want any sort of bilateral contacts. And the reason for this is that we say that as long as Pakistan does not give up its policy of launching terrorist attacks against India, as long as Pakistan does not give up its policy of state-sponsored terrorism, we will not have any bilateral contacts. We don't want to have trade with them. We have a diplomatic presence,
right,
because we have a diplomatic relationship. But we don't want to have any sort of people-to-people contacts, because our belief is that unless they give up their policy of terrorism, there should be no relations with them whatsoever. Moreover, let me also mention that there are important security concerns.
Yep.
In fact, some prominent people from within Pakistan
right,
have themselves advised that India should not come because there are serious security issues. You know, foreign nationals from all countries feel very insecure. Chinese nationals have been killed recently, just a few days ago at the airport. So the Indian cricket team would face some security issues. And why should we expose our team to these risks? Now, let me mention, what is being talked about is a hybrid model. That is to say, some matches taking place in Pakistan and some taking place outside.
right.
I understand that the name of Dubai is being mentioned very, very actively, that India's matches could take place there, and including, of course, the semi-finals and finals. And there would be some matches in which Pakistan would play, which would take place there. So this hybrid model could solve the situation. And my understanding is that is very seriously under consideration.
Okay.
All right. I also want to ask Gautam Bhattacharya, you know, we have been talking about diplomatic tensions. We have also been talking about security concerns, as our guest rightly mentioned right now. According to you, and you have been covering sports and cricket for a very, very long time, how complex is this situation according to you?
Well, I think as Mr. Dayal pointed out, given the layer of complexities that are involved, resumption of bilateral ties in cricket comes much later in the pecking order. What Pakistan had kind of taken it as a kind of prestige issue is that they are in line to host a major ICC event after 1996, as you said a little while back. And they had created a draft fixture on their own without the go-ahead from India, actually, where they had, scheduled all India's 3 group matches in Lahore to say that, they will be minimizing on their travel. But if you ask me, I think going forward, maybe when Mr. Jai Shah became the ICC president, hopes were raised a bit, but the stakes are too high here. I mean, the government We have got a government line in this. That is the first priority. So to me, seeing from experience, having lived and worked in Dubai, I think chances of the hybrid model is what is the way forward for me.
Right. We also have Tara Karta, who is former director of the National Security Council. Thank you, Ms. Karta, for joining us. Ma'am, could you also tell us, was there even a time when cricket diplomacy united the two countries, India and Pakistan? And what time was it? Because most experts believe that the most successful period of cricket diplomacy came between 2003 and 2008, which is when two test series were also played, two in Pakistan and two in India. Yeah. How do you see the concerns around security of our own players when it comes to traveling to a country like Pakistan? Do you see that changing anytime soon?
See, I can recall the time when, you could cheer each other's teams, and that was wonderful, right? That was amazing stuff. But that's not the case now. And as a security person, I would not send my team to Pakistan. No way. I mean, let's be very clear on that. Because it's not just that the Sri Lankan team got attacked. It's not just that, say the Chinese people got attacked. It's that the Pakistanis are attacking themselves. There are attacks against Ahmadiyas. There's attacks on all kinds of issues. There's TTP. It's all around and inside. So I really wouldn't risk our players. I think however, since it's a game, and let's face it, there's a lot of money riding on it. There's a lot of reputations riding on it. I think some kind of a hybrid model would probably work better, where you have your game, but you go somewhere else and you play that.
Right. Ambassador, elections have happened in Jammu and Kashmir, and Jammu and Kashmir has been this hot button issue when it comes to India and Pakistan. Do you see relations between India and Pakistan changing, becoming normal anytime soon, now that, we have at least started the process of mainstreaming J&K completely?
Well, the policy in Pakistan is not decided by the elected government. In other words, Shehbaz Sharif's government doesn't count for anything in this regard. Policy is decided by the deep state of Pakistan, which consists of the army and the ISI. And they have a vested interest in maintaining hostility, because when there is hostility, they have primacy in the Pakistani system. If there was peace between India and Pakistan and relations were absolutely normal, the army would simply have to go back to the barracks, which it doesn't want, because its primacy affords it a lot of benefits. For one thing, it is able to set up things like defense housing societies where lands are sold very cheaply to armed forces people. Right. It has this Fauji Foundation, which is the biggest conglomerate corporation in Pakistan, and where positions are only given to Pakistani armed forces people. So it has a lot of side benefits, and the army is not going to give up all these. I only mention it because it's just not a power struggle. There are a lot of material aspects there. Now, if Shehbaz Sharif's government doesn't count, and if the Pakistan army speaks of bleeding India by 1,000 cuts, and I'm not joking, this is what continues to happen. And at the talks given by army generals to the junior officers, this is the rhythm. Right. We will bleed India by 1,000 cuts. So in this background, whether or not there are elections in Jammu and Kashmir, whatever happens within India or in Pakistan, things don't change. The armed forces maintain their constant position to hurt India in any manner whatsoever. Now, just as an aside, you spoke about how good cricketing relations were between 2003 and 2008. Let me mention, I served in Pakistan from 1981 to 1985. And during my tenure, the Indian cricket team visited in 1982 and again in 1984. Imran Khan was the cricket captain. Sunil Gavaskar was the Indian cricket captain. All the teams used to come to the reception hosted by the Indian Consul General. There was a degree of bonhomie. Now, poor Imran Khan is himself in jail. How can we have a normalized relationship with a country which locks up its own political leaders, where terrorists are on the rampage, where security is a huge concern? I don't think our cricket team should go. All your panelists are agreed on this. And certainly, India's matches can be held in Dubai because there can be a hybrid model.
Right.
So you speak about the hybrid model, and I want to get a sense of from all of you. If India goes and plays its cricket in, say, for example, in the UAE or Sri Lanka or South Africa, as it has been proposed at the moment, just want to get a sense from you, sir. First, is hybrid model the answer here? Because what we are trying to say is that, look, we might not be speaking with you, we might not be having any sort of ties with you apart from playing these 1 or 2 odd matches, and we'll do that just when you host this match in a particular country. Is that the right answer? Should we actually encourage the hybrid model here?
Is that question for me?
Yes, sir.
Certainly. We cannot take the risk of our cricket team traveling to Pakistan. Ms. Tara Karta, who is a security expert, herself said if this could happen to the Sri Lankan team or to Pakistani nationals themselves, why should we take the risk of sending our cricketers to play in Pakistan?
Right.
What's the big deal there? And if something goes wrong, then the whole country will cry off that, look, why did government take such a risk? I think this risk is just not worth it. I don't think government will take the risk. And as I said, and I repeat, the hybrid model is the only answer.
All right, I want to get a response from Dr. Karakarta as well. Ma'am, you were raising your finger. You have something to say, and I also want to understand from you. An incident, if it all were to happen, it might happen anywhere in the world because of what is at stake here. It might happen in UAE, it might happen in South Africa. Again, my question is hybrid model the answer to it?
I think that's a good point. When you're not even, okay, this is purely, like I said, from a security point of view.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of people coming and attacking my soldiers and my officers in Kashmir. Why would I want to play cricket with them? So that is the hype. What you said is very correct. Should you play? My question is, should you play with them at all? I agree it's a sport. Left to myself, I would say, yeah, it's a sport. Why don't you just go and play? And, that's a great thing. But on a purely the self-respect of a country, come on. You've got these people attacking you all the time. Unless they can show me that they are willing to back off from this model, why would I want to play with them?
Right. Gautam Bhattacharya, as somebody who has really minimal interest in sports, I want to ask you about this beast that social media is when you talk about Babar Azam, or even when you talk about Neeraj Chopra's friendship with a Pakistan archer who javelin, yeah.
Yes.
So how do these comments on social media also impact people to people ties? Because while we say and agree that a nation has gone rogue and should not be engaged with, artists and actors and sports people could be a little beyond that, isn't it?
Yes, that's a good question. The relationship between these cricketers have been cordial since time immemorial. There are wonderful stories of friendship between Gavaskar and Imran, subsequently Azharuddin and Wasim Akram's generation. Even now, there is a great deal of mutual respect between, say, Virat Kohli and Babar Azam. Now, that is at one plane. Then, as you said, the question of, Nadeem and Neeraj's relationship, that's at a different plane where, the government policies are not coming into play. When, I have heard stories from Saurav Ganguly that when they last visited, he was the captain and such, the hospitality was really awesome, and how he slipped out of the hotel to grab his share of kebab from the Karachi food street, etc. But that's at a different level. Things haven't really gone better. Things have worsened. That's what our learned friends are trying to say in this panel. So, but in the cricket world, we cannot, it's a fractured world. We have got 10 member nations playing, 10 and 12. So, and Pakistan is a major stakeholder in the world of cricket. So you have got to maintain the relationship, and toward that end, hybrid model right now, if the world, the world is not a perfect place, but a hybrid model for right now seems to be the way forward. But Pakistan will have their only grouse can be that if we can travel to India for the World Cups, when it comes to reciprocation, how come India are not doing it? In fact, their next card could be that in 2026, India are hosting the T20 World Cup game. So that's where again this bargaining chip will come into play.
Right.
Gautam Bhattacharya, I also want to get a sense of, the financial and broadcasting aspects of it as well, because that is a key point when it comes to any India-Pakistan encounter and the kind of money and the eyeballs it generates. A bilateral series between India and Pakistan. Who needs it more here? Is it the PCB? Is it the ICC? Because it has suffered losses during the T20 World Cup as well. Because clearly BCCI doesn't. So who needs it more? Is it the PCB or is it the ICC here?
Of course, it's ICC, and what has happened is ICC's broadcasters, Star Sports, they're already fighting a kind of broadcasting battle. They're trying to go on their own with the ICC products. Yeah. If India pulls out, then they will be in a soup. I mean, right. As a product, it will, at least it will become 50% less marketable. And as you know, England has already said that there can't be a Champions Trophy without India.
Right. Tarakata, you had a point to make.
So on paper, you're finished Sri Lanka, but that's not going to happen in reality.
Okay.
All right.
Tara, ma'am, you had something to say?
No, not really. I was just thinking, I mean, this whole, what you said about the money aspect, it's huge, right? We're talking, I don't know, how many hundreds of crores. But I mean, it's a sport which is hugely popular. Everybody goes crazy on it. But for me, in the end, it's about, whether there is enough trust. If I can see this as a break and as a movement forward, and that the Pakistan side is now willing to go, the extra mile, I would say go for it.
Okay. My last question to you, Ambassador Dayal, Dr. S. Jaishankar and India have been talking about the policy of dehyphenation for some years now, India and Pakistan. That's our major lesson to the west of India also. How much of India's own foreign policy has also been important in India's reluctance to engage with Pakistan and not really willing to compromise till Pakistan really agrees to stop terror activities?
Yeah. Well, before I answer your question, let me say that I had raised my hand earlier because Tara Karta was not present when I made my opening intervention. And I had categorically said that our government does not want to have any sort of engagement with Pakistan because it is a terrorist state. It sponsors terrorism. And I had said that as long as Pakistan does not give up its policy of terrorism, why should we have any sort of contact like in the cricketing world or any other sporting area or in the field of culture? We should not have any contacts because Pakistan sponsors terrorism against us. Now, as regards your question about dehyphenating India and Pakistan, look, that happened long ago. India is the world's third largest economy. Pakistan is in doldrums. It's going around with a begging bowl. People avoid Pakistan simply because they're afraid it may end up asking for more loans, etc. And I'm serious about it. Even the Saudis in the UAE try to sort of keep the Pakistanis at an arm's distance. And they're extremely worried that Pakistani citizens are going to Saudi Arabia, for instance, on the pretext of pilgrimage. And they're begging on the streets of Saudi Arabia. So right. Nobody wants this yet. Now, dehyphenation took place a long time ago. And when Mr. Jaishankar returned from the SCO summit, he said that, Pakistan now for us is just secondary. It is not what Pakistanis would like to think, that India and Pakistan are on parity, etc. Pakistan is just nowhere on the horizon. Okay. We have moved far, far ahead. Of course, it's a security challenge, and we will take care of that.
So many interesting points. I thank you all of you for joining us on this broadcast. So does cricket still play a role in high-level bilateral diplomacy? Can it even lead to some break in this diplomatic freeze? Osama doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon.
Well, it doesn't look like it is happening anytime soon, but at the same time, a lot of our panelists, they suggested there is a hybrid model. Will India adopt that hybrid model? Will the ICC come up with a hybrid model? Is it a possibility? Will we see India versus Pakistan, a bilateral series happening anytime soon? Well, these are some of the questions that might be answered in a couple of months from now.
Time for a short break. More news and updates on the other side.